Mike and I got acquainted through the fire service. He being with the Hamden Fire Department and me here with Concord Township. He being a volunteer and having no people in his station, Concord Township, me, we had maybe 1-2 guys on duty. So he would contact me and say, hey, I'm leaving town. Would you kind of keep an ear to what's going on in Hamden? And if you could, kind of help them if they need it, you know. So I would listen. And while I'm listening to the activities of Concord or in Hamden that was going on, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to help you, okay, Mike? I'm on duty here with me and maybe one guy. I am not quite sure, but I'll do what I can. So anyway, that's kind of how we became acquainted and friends, and we've gone through a lot of things within Concord Township, Hamden, Lake County, Geauga County. It hadn't been easy because my limitation and my resources was limited. His was even worse. If I got into buying and I needed to call mutual aid, and if it was a tanker operation, Hamden was called because they had a tanker. The tanker we had at that time was kind of old, rickety, it wasn't reliable, wouldn't even climb up a hill with a full load of water, as you'll remember. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of helped each other, as we should. We're neighbors, so we should be neighborly and do whatever we can. And then when I finally retired and he became fire chief, we still continued as friends, okay? And if he had a question about Concord, I would try to answer it as best I could. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we both worked on. The ISO rating for Concord Township back at that period of time was a 7 and a 9 rating. A 7 if you were more than 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant, and a 9 if you were beyond that. And if you had no fire department at all, it was a 10. So Concord's rating was a 7 and a 9, okay? Well, I wanted to improve it, and the only way I could improve it was to have water. Well, because we didn't have any fire hydrants, any water lines in most of the township, we had to rely on tankers. So made contact with the ISO and a group, and they're the people who determine what your fire insurance rating is going to be. And we were going to do a test, whether we could in fact move water to be able to deliver what we needed for fires, okay? And it's known as a water shuttle. And so we got that set up, and I had all the tankers come in from neighboring communities, Hamden included. And so we were going through this process, okay? And we finally did get a good rating on it. But during the process, we're pumping water. We're out here in the ball pump diamond area. And the one pumper, the lead pumper, lost its water. So the inspector that was with us from ISO, he says, you guys failed. And I said, no, I had a clipboard. So I says, and I'm looking at the pumper, well, he got the water going yet. And I'm beating him with the clipboard, saying, no, we're working. Look, Mike, yeah, we got it. So, and we passed it. So we were able to get the Concord Township to a 5 rating, a special hydrant water flow rating. So it reduced the fire insurance for some of the people. One of the things I want to mention about Station 2 is that in the 80s, nobody was there. It's like Mike said, it was a 2-bay garage. Didn't even have a toilet, okay? Station 2 was unmanned. There's no provisions for people there, but we had 2 trucks stored there. So at the time, we had picked up a new female part-time employee. I think she was just out of high school, 18 years old or whatever. So anyway, we were at 2, and the guys are kind of giving her a tour of the station, okay? Now, there's no toilet facilities there. Nothing. Guys can get along okay, but you know, she was a female. So anyway, she says, I have to use the restroom. Where's it at? And one of the guys, you know, said, oh, it's through this door. It was a back door out of the building. Okay, so she goes through the door, closes the door. Pretty soon she's knocking on the door. And she said, there's no bathroom here. All it was grass, you know, so yeah.
It was tough. They had a drain that they had to use, and But it took the guys that were on duty, and guys came in on their own time to build stuff. And they had guys come in and put a new roof on it. You know, all the maintenance that was done, a lot of the stuff that was done here, the painting in the old days was done here. And this was a community center up on top. So we shared with the Monday night band.
Yeah.
And they were the Concord,
The Concord Band.
The Concord Band.
Concord Band, yeah.
Some were very talented. Some.
We built these 3 offices, and when the community center, and not to deprive them of having a place, but the community center, when they would use it, it conflicts with us, our operations, or what we were doing daily. Couldn't make any noise. That means if we go on fire call and they're up here, we can't blow the siren as we're supposed to, you know. And we came back, we can't run the trucks because of the fumes would come up. And if we needed to do any kind of activities up here, we just couldn't do it.
When the tones would go off or alert us, I'd have to hear just like he did, they'd come to me and complain.
Yeah.
And they were not supposed to be animals up here. One day I walk out here and there's a goat. And the goat left its business on the floor. It was just, it took time. The township has grown. They put a nice community center in. And now it's time to take care of the firefighters and the community.
But Mike and I, we've had an association for a long period of time. Some good fires we went on, some bad fires. One of the biggest fires I had in Concord Township was WK Plastics.
That was a long night.
That was a long night, and it actually ran 2 weeks, okay, so, and it was gone. When we got the notification, it was gone. And we get there, and it sits up on a hill, and they had a chain across the driveway, and they had semi-trucks parked up close to the building, so you couldn't get to it very well. First thing we had to do is cut the chain, and I'm calling for every fire department in Lake and Geauga County, and even Ashtabula. Because I just don't have the resources, don't have the water or anything. So we cut the chain, we finally got a truck up there, and we decided to run 5-inch fire hose, okay, for water supply. From the one hydrant to a fire truck and relayed up to the tanker. When they hooked up the hose to the tanker, it's a quarter turn storage fitting, well it didn't get turned all the way. So we're pumping, and next thing we know, it breaks loose. We're flowing water all over the place. Okay, that was one problem we had. So anyway, Mike shows up, and he says, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, those trucks are parked pretty close to the building, and we're defensive, and see what you can do to protect the buildings or the trucks." And, so that was his assignment. We lost, and he did it quite well. But we lost the building. It was probably the biggest fire loss dollar-wise in Lake County at that point in time. So we did everything we could, and we ended up calling the ATF to come in because there was explosions during the process and everything. And there nobody was around for the owners of the building. He conveniently was in Florida somewhere. Okay, and so we had just all kinds of problems with it. And he was with me, stayed with me as much as he could the full week that we were there.
We had some good times, and we broke the barriers. When we started running back and forth on auto, we called it auto aid, which meant that we would automatically come up here if there was a fire, whether they needed water or whatever, and we would call them as well. By doing that, it reduced that time of waiting for somebody to get on the scene, 2 or 3 minutes, then call, wait for it to get dispatched out, get people in. By doing that, we kind of broke the barriers because no one else was doing that in the area, and the Lake County chiefs would give him a hard time for calling that Hamden Fire Department, and I would get a hard time from the Geauga chiefs because I would call Concord, and we would do stuff back and forth before we would call anybody else, because it just worked out very well. We had a lot of the same understanding, same way of doing things, and we got along very well. So he left me quite the legacy. Coming here, they didn't have paramedics when he started as chief. He got paramedics. He got the first full-time people in here, and we just carried it forward. We did another ISO rating because it's a township group. They put more water lines in, so we got to reduce it another number. And so by doing that, it helps some of the commercial businesses with that reduction. So it was just a great opportunity and a great person to follow. We got along well, and he's right. If something was going on, especially in the early days, because he had the history of Concord, where I didn't, and we would communicate and talk back and forth. We worked on levies together to make sure that the community was taken care of. And these stations really mean a lot to us to get them replaced. It's the greatest thing, because both of us feel the safety of our people in this community are on the hands of the firefighters that are here. And if we don't make it a safe place for them, they can't respond. And they don't want to work here if it's not safe. And those stairs and Station 2 just being as cramped as it is, where you start to truck up, I don't care how good your exhaust system is, they're breathing that stuff in. We've got to make sure that they're taken care of. But over the years, we'd go on calls together, we'd go to schools together. We did a lot of things to make things better. And I can tell you, the funny part is, we had color codes on our equipment so you could see it in the dark or picking up equipment. And Hamden was yellow and green, and so was Concord. How they ever put those colors the same. So as soon as I got here, he said, would you go back to Hamden and get all the stuff that you took and bring it back to Concord?
Yeah.
Because we got along. And it was nice because Chief Welk was here before him. You know, he was their first full-time chief, and then they brought Chief Terriaco on to be able to expand it. So each chief took it to the next level. That's what their job was. Nobody was better than the other, nobody worse than the other. They just took it to the next level to make it better for the community. And
Yeah, so you know, being a firefighter. It's a challenging job. It's a dangerous job. Okay. There is a program which says firefighters go home after the shift, you know, and there is that thought that you're doing your job, and in the process of doing your job, something happens, and you're not able to go home. You know, so it's tough. It's tough on the families. There's many a meal that I missed sitting down with the kids because I'm at the station. Mike's got the same problem. You know, so
we would, Christmas days, both of us were out on calls, house fires, helping somebody else while your own storms. The flood of '06. You know, my family was at home while we were here getting people rescued, and snowstorms, power outages. We'd be here or out on calls while your family's at home. And not that we have any regrets over that. It's not that we didn't like doing it, but that's the mentality of a firefighter, is they're out here to help people. And in order to help them, you've got to give them decent equipment. Concord has very good equipment, and the way to protect it is by putting up the new buildings and getting them up now while the interest rates are down there, so they can move forward, get them done, pay them off. And Chief Terriaco's right about these trustees. This is one of the best boards. They're younger, not that the other ones were old. It's just they have a younger attitude about a can-do, and they want to work together. They have done all their homework. They did those meetings, stakeholder meetings, to get advice from people. You don't get that anywhere. And he's right about being the old chiefs. When I was the chief in Hamden, I was the youngest chief in the county. I was in my mid-30s. I like to say early, but mid-30s. You know, and coming here, new kid on the block, you're facing the old salts that have been around Lake County for a long time, and you're that jolly volley from Geauga County, and we outlasted them though, didn't we?
Yep.
We're still around. But we built that bond by working together, which we carried on to our own counties and our own communities. What he built here and that I was able to carry on and work, that partnerships that we built with people makes it what's better for the community. The auto aid that we run today is a derivative of the auto aid that he and I started with back in the 80s. After 87, we started that working together to help make this a safer place for our people to work, safer for our communities, because we never had enough people. It takes 12 to 16 people to go to a residential fire and fight a fire. We can't afford that through this whole community because you go on a lot of squad runs and EMS runs, but the fires, when they do happen, you need all the help you can get. And by running this auto aid where everybody's coming together at one time, by using the surrounding communities and helping each other, it allows us to make sure that the firefighters have it safe, that they can do their job, to do what it takes to save that person's home, help rescue anybody that might be trapped in there, have the equipment and the people that you need right away. That's the legacy that I guess him and I started with back in the 80s to build on that. And it's an honor for me to sit with him and still have him around, to be able to talk to him and to be able to do something like this, doing all this stuff. Everything that he worked for, everything that guy that's standing up on the truck, and the guy in front is Ernie Spear. The guy up on top with his hat cocked was an old Navy guy. He was Bob Welk. He was the next chief. Each one of those chiefs took it to a new level. And each one of us, now that we're the only ones left, want to see this get done.